All right, so we have our create account page and our login pages created, but one thing that we still have left to do is add error handling to these pages. So what happens, for example, if we enter in, here, let's go to our login page. What happens if we enter in an email that doesn't exist, right? Or even something that's not an email, and a password that's just sort of random characters, right? In other words, what happens if we enter in faulty credentials and click on login? Well, what we'll see is that, whoops, it ends up throwing an error. Now, error handling is very important in this sort of page, obviously because, we want to let the user know when they enter in the wrong password, since that's probably just as common, if not more common, than entering in the right password. So the way that we're going to do this in both of our pages is essentially we're just going to have a state variable that will contain any errors that occurred while logging in or creating an account, and we're going to end up displaying that error down inside the JSX. Chances are you've done something like this before, but maybe you haven't seen it done in this context. So first of all, what we're going to do for our, we'll start off with our login page, I suppose. We're going to add another state variable here, which we'll call error. Oops, there we go, error, and set error. And the initial value of this error is just going to be an empty string. If you really want to, you can set that to something like null or undefined. It'll have the same effect the way that we're using it. So the next thing that we're going to do is, now that we have this error state, basically when the user actually tries to log in, what'll happen is if they enter in something that isn't an email, or if they enter in the wrong password, or if the account doesn't exist with that email, etc., this thing here is going to throw an error. Okay, so essentially what that means is we're going to have to wrap this in a try-catch block. And basically in the catch block is where we'll deal with the error and take care of setting the state. Right, so everything inside this try block is something that we, well, not everything, mainly this thing here, this is something that we expect may well fail. So we're going to say catch, and inside here, once we've got the error, we're just going to say set error to e.message. Okay, this will contain a user-readable message that you can basically display telling the user that something went wrong. Okay, so that's really all we need to do. The other thing is that now that we have that error message, let's display that to the user inside this form here. So what we're going to do is down here, we're just going to basically check if the error exists. If it does, we're going to display a paragraph tag with the error inside of it. So we'll say, we'll just put in the error. And that's all we really need to do. One more thing that we might want to do is actually hide the error when the user clicks login, right? It's usually considered a good practice to hide the errors when the user resubmits the form so that they know that those errors are from the previous time, and that everything's being recalculated essentially. So the way that we can do that is just by saying set error empty string, and then we'll try it again, and if there's another error, then it will set the error to something else. Okay, so let's give this a try now. Hopefully it won't cause our application to crash when the user enters in the wrong password. So let's try entering in something, first of all, that's not even an email, right? We're just going to click login. And sure enough, we see Firebase error auth invalid email. Now, this is fairly readable, but you may well not want to tell the user that you're using Firebase, right? It's just, I don't know, there's not really any point behind giving Firebase free advertising inside our application by displaying Firebase inside our error messages. So what you might want to do is just copy this, and there might be an easier way to do this, but this is just what I'm going to do for now. And what you can do is actually create a map between Firebase's native error messages and the ones that you end up displaying to the user. So I'll just say something like error messages equals, and for the key here, I'm just going to paste that. Message that we got, and we can change that to something like invalid email address, which will be the thing that we actually end up displaying to the user. Okay, so what we could do is just say set error to error messages e.message, and then we'll provide a backup just in case we end up getting an error that we haven't accounted for, and that backup will be something like, something went wrong. Okay, not a tremendously useful error message, but that's the best we can do in this case. So let's go back now and give that a try. We're going to basically refresh this. Let's try entering in an invalid email again, click login, and sure enough, we'll see invalid email address. If we do end up getting an error that we haven't accounted for, like if I just enter in something like that and click login, we'll just see this backup, something went wrong message. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the other errors. So what I'm going to do is actually remove this for now and just do what we were doing before. I'll say set error to e.message. That'll allow us to see some of the other messages that you can get. Let's try entering in the wrong password, or just entering in no password at all. Okay, so what we're going to see, that just says internal error. I'm assuming that means that the password was wrong. Maybe let's just try entering in a random password there. So apparently those are two different things. Apparently internal error is something, when you didn't enter your password, something like that. So let's try that again. We're going to say sean@gmail.com. We're going to click login, and we'll just take this one here. Actually, this is a fairly generic error, so maybe we'll just leave it the way it is. We do want the wrong password one, though, so we'll copy this one. We're going to add an entry for it in our error messages by pasting it. We'll say something like, that's the wrong password. Okay, and we'll see now, if we uncomment this other thing we had down here, that if we try and enter the wrong password, we'll see that's the wrong password. So I'm not going to go through all of the different error messages, but those two are probably the most common. One other one that you might get, here, let's just uncomment that again. One other one you might get is if there's no account for the corresponding user, right? You'll get this user not found thing, and I'm just going to copy that, paste that in here, and we'll say something like, there is no account with that email address. Okay, and now what we'll see, if we just uncomment that like that, is we'll see there's no account with that email address. Cool, so feel free to do that for all of the errors. There's obviously several more that we haven't talked about here, but those are the most common ones. Generally, in other cases, it's fine to just display, something went wrong, because generally that just means something went wrong communicating with Firebase, or some kind of internal error occurred in Firebase, something like that. So anyway, that's kind of the basic strategy for that. What we're going to do next is add similar logic to the create account page. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do here is add an error state variable. We'll say const error set error equals use state. That'll start off as an empty string. And we're going to do the same thing inside create account that we did inside our login page. Essentially, we're going to wrap the sensitive logic inside a try catch block. And in the catch block here, we're going to basically set the error state variable to the error message, right? And you can go through and do the same thing that we did here for our login page, but I'm not going to do that for the create account page since it's pretty straightforward to do. So we're just going to say set error here, e.message. And then we'll obviously want to actually display the error down here above our inputs by saying if error exists, then let's display it by saying paragraph error. Okay, so now if we go back to our create account page, right, let's just refresh this, go to create account. Let's say that we enter in an email that isn't an email, and I don't know, let's say the passwords don't match or anything. We'll see auth invalid email. If we enter in a valid email like sean5@gmail.com and don't enter in any passwords at all, Click create account, we'll see internal error, which again, I guess means that we didn't send along the right arguments, right, with a password and everything. If we try and create an account that already has an account associated with it, right, with an email that already has an account associated with it, you'll see that we end up getting a different error, email already in use. So there's a lot of different errors that you might want to handle here. Feel free to go through and catalog those and change the message that we end up displaying if you want to, but I'm just going to leave that for now. So one more thing that we are going to want to add to our create account page, though, is we're going to want to check and make sure that the password and confirm password match. Now, this is a pretty simple thing to do. What we're going to do is just say if password does not equal confirm password, then what we're going to do is say set error message, or set error, to something like password and confirm password must match. And then we'll just say return, which will prevent the rest of the logic in this function from executing. So this way, we can make sure that the user has actually entered in the correct password in both of these entries. So let's say something like sean5@gmail.com, abc123, and let's just enter in some gibberish here and click create account. Sure enough, we'll see password and confirm password must match. So let's try adding the same password now and click create account. And we should see successfully created an account. If we click OK now, we'll go to the home page with that new account. Okay, so that's how to add basic error handling to both our create account page and our login page. And obviously error handling is going to be a very important thing in applications like this because, you know, if there's one thing that you can rely on happening very, very frequently in your application, it's users entering in the wrong password or typing in the wrong email, etc. So again, it's important that we handle those, and that's what we've done here. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.